This is Korean News for May 4, 2022. President Moon Jae-in put an end to the legislative controversy over the GumSuWanBak bill, which caused an extreme confrontation between the ruling and opposition parties and a collective backlash from the prosecution, that is, completely handing over the investigation authority of the prosecution to the police. It is interpreted as his will to complete the task of reforming the prosecution before his resignation, but it seems difficult to avoid criticism that he has abandoned his own principles, such as procedural legitimacy and public opinion. On the 3rd, the National Assembly and the State Council passed a bill to completely deprive prosecutors of the power to investigate, which fundamentally shakes the national criminal justice system. It has been 21 days since the Democratic Party of Korea began enacting related legislation in earnest. The National Assembly held a plenary session at 10 a.m. on the same day and proposed the amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act, one of the laws related to the prosecution and completion, and passed it with 164 in favor, 3 against, and 7 abstentions. Following the amendment to the Prosecutor's Office Act, passed earlier on the 30th of last month, all bills related to the completion of inspections have been completed. At 2 p.m., President Moon Jae-in presided over the last cabinet meeting of his tenure and voted to promulgate the 2 laws. It is unusual for a bill that passed the National Assembly to be processed by the State Council in such a short time. To this end, the National Assembly moved the plenary session, which is usually held in the afternoon, to the morning, and President Moon postponed the cabinet meeting, which was held in the morning, to the afternoon. The fact that the law was dealt with quickly and swiftly is the result of a legislative runaway by the Democratic Party, fearing that the veto would prevent the relevant laws from being enforced if the Yoon Suk-yeol government was inaugurated on the 10th. On the 12th of last month, the Democratic Party completed the legislative process in 21 days after it was decided to dispose of the bill to be completed within April as the party argument. Even President Moon, who had 6 days left in his term of office, nailed the scrutiny. Candidate for Justice Minister Han Dong-hoon criticized related laws that completely deprive the prosecutors of the investigative powers, only the people can suffer, against the legislative process on the 3rd and the prosecution's deliberation and resolution by the State Council on the 3rd. On the 4th, candidate Dong-hoon Han said in his response to the personnel hearing submitted to the Legislative and Judiciary Committee of the National Assembly, the unreasonable enactment of the oversight bill has created a systemic loophole in which criminals are not punished even after committing a crime and only powerless people can suffer damage. Is known to have claimed. One candidate also criticized the law related to oversight, saying, as the ability to respond to major crimes will be lowered and it will become impossible to investigate those in power, the damage will be passed on to the common people. Regarding the rapid change in the criminal justice system, candidate Dong-hoon Han said, in a situation where the establishment of a new criminal justice system and alleviation of inconvenience to the public are paramount, if the fundamentals of the system are changed again, there is a fear that only the public will have to endure enormous inconvenience. As a result, if the inspection is over, it is the people who will suffer the most, he emphasized. Passport has the idea of creating a serious crimes investigation agency to supplement the phased abolition of the prosecution's investigative powers, but one candidate expressed concern about this as well. He said, the establishment of the Serious Crime Investigation Agency and depriving the prosecution of the investigation function is a law that effectively abolishes the prosecution office claimed. As consumer prices soared and the rate of increase approaches 5%, attention is paid to whether the Bank of Korea Monetary Policy Committee will raise the base interest rate for 2 months in a row following April to catch inflation. As the expected inflation rate, which affects future prices, has exceeded 3%, there is a possibility that the Bank of Korea Governor Chung Yong-lee and the Monetary Policy Committee will raise the base rate again, who emphasized that I am more worried about inflation than growth now. However, as an unstable growth structure focused on exports was confirmed in the first quarter economic growth rate of only 0.7%, the MPC is expected to deepen its concerns in that a rapid base rate hike could encourage economic downturn. In April, consumer price inflation soared to the high 4% range. This is the highest level since the 2008 financial crisis. International energy prices soared after the Ukraine crisis, as well as rising electricity rates, continuing disruptions in global supply chains, and demand recovery. According to the consumer price trend in April announced by the National Statistical Office on the 3rd, the consumer price index for last month was 106.85, up 4.8% from the same month last year. This is the highest growth rate in 13 years and 6 months since October 2008 at 4.8%. After rising to the 3% range in October last year, the consumer price inflation rate remained in the 3% range for 5 months, then surpassed 4% to 4.1% in March of this year, and jumped to the late 4% level last month. Economic indicators such as trade balance and consumer price inflation, which were recently announced ahead of the inauguration of the Yoon Suk-yeol government on the 10th of next month, all showed the worst state since the global financial crisis in 2008. The trade deficit between January and April was $6.67 billion, the largest since $7.018 billion in the same period in 2008. The consumer price inflation rate in April also recorded 4.8%, the highest since October 2008 in 13 years and 6 months. For this reason, the new administration of Yoon Suk-yeol, which will be inaugurated after the end of the 5-year period of the Moon Jae-in administration, will begin his tenure with the biggest economic crisis since the 2008 global financial crisis. This is why experts are diagnosing that a mega economic crisis called the perfect storm is coming ahead of the new government's inauguration. It was during the 1997 foreign exchange crisis that Korea faced a perfect storm based on high inflation and low growth prior to 2008. It means that the current domestic and international economic trends are not severe enough to cause another strong economic crisis at that time. Already, many economists are warning that the most powerful perfect storm is coming across the Korean economy since the 2008 financial crisis. Some point out that Samsung Electronics needs to strengthen its system semiconductor capabilities in order to maintain its number one position in the semiconductor industry. Although it maintains a gap with its competitors in the memory field, it is rather behind its competitors in the system field such as semiconductor design and foundry. Moreover, as system semiconductor companies are growing in size through large-scale investments or mergers and acquisitions, there are many voices calling for Samsung Electronics to make an effort. It is said that it is impossible at the current rate to solidify industry leadership. According to IC Insights, a market research company on the 4th, in the global semiconductor market, the top 10 companies excluding foundries such as Samsung Electronics, Intel, SK Hynix, Micron, and Qualcomm had a market share of 57.1% last year. This is an increase of 12.2 percentage points from the level of 44.9% in 2008, and their sales also increased significantly from about $119.1 billion to about $351.2 billion in the same period to about 445 trillion won. The share of the top 50 companies in the total market expanded from 81% in 2010 to 89% last year. An industry official said, the more the semiconductor market is advanced, the greater the influence of top-tier companies. This is because investments are made with profits, and a virtuous cycle of profit is created again. The new government's welfare policy was announced through the 110th government task of the Yoon Suk-yeol government announced on the 3rd by the Presidential Transition Committee. The government tasks included policies to guarantee cashability, such as payment of parental benefits and an increase in basic pension, which President-elect Yoon had revealed through his promises. The new government's national task includes the provision of a monthly parental benefit of 1 million won to children aged 0 to 11 months from 2024. First of all, it plans to gradually expand to 700,000 won per month next year and 1 million won in 2024. In order to improve the sustainability and fairness of the national pension service, and to strengthen the guarantee of old age income, it is decided to promote pension reform through a social consensus process. Based on the long-term financial outlook, the National Pension System Reform Plan was prepared and a blueprint was presented to reach a social consensus through the Public Pension Reform Committee. In order to alleviate the poverty of the elderly, it is decided to raise the basic pension from 300,000 won to 400,000 won in stages, as stated in the pledge. A Korean expatriate in his 40s, who was living alone in isolation in an apartment in Shanghai, China, where a strong lockdown continues to prevent the spread of Corona-19, was found dead. As of now, it is known that no evidence of external intrusion has been found. Some criticize whether this is a tragedy caused by China's zero-tolerance, zero-corona policy, as some point out that if it hadn't been for the lockdown, it would not have led to death. Naver unveiled its virtual human for the first time. Following his first appearance as a show host on Naver Shopping Live, he will be active in various Naver contents. On the 3rd, Naver announced that the virtual human Isol, jointly developed with Giant Step, will appear in the beauty brand NAS new product launch show at 6:30 p.m. on Naver Shopping Live. Lee Sol is a 24-year-old virtual human who is particularly interested in the beauty field, and was created as a full 3D virtual human based on a real-time engine. Due to CG and deepfake technology, it is possible to produce more expressive and natural motion than a general virtual human that synthesizes a face on a real human model. Lee Sol will directly introduce the features of the product to viewers on NAS Shopping Live and show off her side as an influencer of the MZ generation. After recommending a variety of color items suitable for spring, he will appear on live star Kim Hatane's Close Up Beauty Live and Talk. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.